What's going on, YouTube? It's Big Brother 749 coming back at you with another video. I want to talk about a problem that's going on in public schools, and that's this critical race theory situation. Because for a while now, I've been seeing where conservatives and right wingers all across the country, such as Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, another asshole who want to stop certain things from being taught in school. Like they want to ban history about racism, slavery, and stuff like that that they teach in school, like historic racism. And they're saying that they want to ban that because it makes white students feel uncomfortable, and conservatives are saying that white children shouldn't be made to feel guilty about the color of their skin. And it's gotten to where there's an elementary school in Indiana that's going so far as in giving parents the option to cancel Black History Month lessons altogether. And I'm going to touch on that real quick. And first of all, I don't think banning Black History lessons from schools are a good idea. That's not going to do too much good for the nation because white kids are still being exposed and they're seeing racism every day. They're seeing racism in the news with the police brutality. They're seeing it in politics. And just a few years ago, I remember they tried to remove the Confederate flag, which was necessary. But I'm hoping they didn't do that as an attempt for us to forget about the past and pretend it never existed. Like, hey, let's put it behind us. Let's bury the hatchet and let it go. Let bygones be bygones. And of course, removing the Confederate flag didn't end racism as well after that. And though I don't agree with banning Black history, I don't doubt that it does make some whites of all age groups, especially teens and adult whites, feel uncomfortable. And not just guilt, but also fear because there are still some angry, racist black folks who would get triggered when they're being reminded of what their ancestors been through. Just like I remember hearing the story from a lot of the baby boomers when Roots came out back in '77, to where that triggered and angered a lot of black high school kids to where they were going around beating up white kids after seeing that movie. And a lot of slave movies, that have been released and made since then, and still being made, and that may anger blacks to where they're going to start promoting anti-white rhetoric and start hating white people. And it shouldn't get to that because that's only folks who's being easily manipulated. Because I feel that nobody should generalize and do harm to someone who hasn't done anything to them. Because whites shouldn't harm innocent blacks, and blacks shouldn't harm innocent whites, because wrong is wrong. Because it can get to a point to where some white people may become frightened and would get too uncomfortable to where they may try to prove to every single black person that they come in contact with that they're not racist, which could make them look even more racist. Because, for example, had that professor from UCLA that was suspended a couple of years ago, I think his name was Gordon Klein or something like that. Now, if he had never received that request from that black student and had willingly gave his black students easier final exams and was being more lenient with them than their white counterparts, then he would look racist, though his intention was not to be racist. Or let's say a white person does something nice for a black person. The black person would thank them, and the white person's response is like, "Oh yeah, anytime, I'll help anybody, black, white, I don't care what color you are." And that'll make them look racist right there because they didn't have to say that to where they're being extra, giving preferential special treatment to blacks, to where they may look racist while trying to prove that they're not racist. And it shouldn't even get to that point because as black folks, we just want to be treated as equals. Because I feel if you're not a racist or you don't have any racism in your heart, you shouldn't feel guilty about being white at all. But these history lessons are just trying to educate kids and make them more aware of how this country was ran. And while critical race theory is the new boogeyman in school districts and the idea of it not being taught in classrooms, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to ban the black Crayola crayon from the box if that was next on the chopping block. But the thing about this critical race theory and this discomfort of white folks, it's a problem that the GOP has been working hard to solve for a long time now. Because just the fact that the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, not wanting to make whites feel uncomfortable about historic racism is exactly what a good majority of the white folks, especially from the older generation, want. And these conservative red states are making it seem like a bad thing since they feel it's illegal to make their kids feel uncomfortable. And to be honest, I think it's really more about their fears that white kids will grow up to be anti-racist in a white majority country. Because conservatives know that with each generation being more progressive than the last, they will lose their grip on the future. And this is to keep the truth from white children. And they fear these white children are going to grow up and become another Eminem, taking a kneeling at the Super Bowl halftime show, and having somebody like Rudy Giuliani or whatever his name is, a villain, find them. And yet you had those people who riot at the Capitol, who tried to kill police, bringing in a Confederate flag into the Capitol, who tried to overturn the election. And this moron want to call those folks patriots. And a lot of these right wingers just want to hide these oppression stories and sweep it under the rug because they don't want to own up to racism in the past. And Trump showed us how many races there really are out here. And now the GOP is trying to protect these racist folks from their conscience because they know facing the reality of their racism means having to do something about it since they still want to perpetrate racism and keep it going. And since it's already been shown in the news, they might as well continue to teach the history of it in school and show these children how wrong and immoral racism really is. Because racism is still going to be around regardless if they ban black history or not. Because I feel kids of all races need to know. You know, they say it makes them feel uncomfortable, but it's not meant to or design or intended to make them feel uncomfortable. It's just to inform and educate them, showing them how things were and how wrong it was as a way to prevent it from happening again. Because when all that stuff was going on, there was no history that was being taught then. There was no history lessons prior to slavery and racism. So, of course, they didn't feel guilty about it. But now, you know, we got American history and historic racism, and it's been documented. And now school children could get deep and learn about it, and they'll see and realize how wrong and fucked up it really was. Because my thing is, why would it make them feel uncomfortable? I mean, there's a way to teach it, and there's a way it should be taught, but it still needs to be taught regardless. Because whites in the past, you know, they enslaved blacks and they killed black people, and they want to ban that. Now forget that, because history needs to be taught and it needs to be learned for every student. If Americans don't know, then the future generation wouldn't know the history of America or how they were slaved or how people were treated. So how are they going to know about the history of this country? Because you see, this country needs to be more like the other countries who don't seem to have a problem educating their children on what really happened to black people. You know, the stories about the oppression by white people shouldn't be hidden and it shouldn't be swept under the rug. Because banning critical race theory, nah, forget that. I just hope these Republicans like Ron DeSantis freaking lose. They need to dismiss me with that idea. That's crazy. Kids need to learn history, making white people feel uncomfortable. Who gives a shit? History is history. It doesn't freaking matter. It should be taught in all levels. And why you want to watch history from my country? Because if the history were to support white people, they would have left it alone. Because things happen. Like it cost the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. It cost his life to fight for civil rights movement, for equal rights, um, and equal protection in the law. And Dr. King fought for freedom. And they shouldn't cancel stuff like that. That doesn't make any sense. You know, that it ain't like racism is going to end if they don't teach history. And you know, and why would they want to watch history from our country, the United States of America? This doesn't belong to one, and I'm not ranting against white people. I'm not generalizing all white people, so don't get me wrong. Just like there's some good white people, there's some good black people, and there's some bad black people, and there's some bad white people, and there were bad white people back then who done evil and killed a lot of black people and enslaved them, and they killed a lot of Native Americans and took their land by force. And no one is legal on the stolen land. This land was stolen from the Native American people, white people. They killed the Europeans. They took their lands. And like I said, this video ain't against white people. I'm not being racist towards white people. I'm only talking about a specific group of white folks. I'm not talking about all. But, you know, they can't just say ban black history because we must understand the struggles we had in life. But history needs to be taught. You know, they say they don't want to make white children feel uncomfortable, but the truth is they don't want to own up to their racism. They don't want their kids to grow up to become anti-racist, and they're just trying to protect racist folks from their guilty conscience. That's all it is. But that's all I want to say, folks. This is Big Brother 749 signing out. I'm out. Peace.